Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be taking a closer look at the role of a migrant social worker.
Hmm.
And it's a career well, it's so much more than just a job title.
Oh, absolutely.
We've been going through some really interesting information from RoleCatcher.
Right.
For anyone who's not familiar, it's a platform that's all about helping people figure out their career paths.
Yeah, they got some great resources.
And they had some really eye-opening insights about what it actually takes to support migrants, individuals and families who are basically starting over in a completely new place.
It's a huge life change.
It really is.
It makes you realize it's about so much more than just like processing paperwork and finding someone an apartment, right?
Absolutely. That's what I found so interesting, too.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher really highlighted the emotional core of this work.
Yeah.
Like, they even shared a story about a young woman who had escaped a conflict zone.
Oh, wow.
And she talked about how crucial her social worker was in helping her rebuild her life in a new country.
Yeah, that's powerful.
It really was. And it really hit home for me just how vital that emotional support and that cultural understanding are
Surely.
for someone to actually adapt and thrive in that kind of situation.
It makes you think about what we were saying earlier about empathy,
Yes.
that deep sense of empathy and being able to bridge those cultural gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Those are so important in this line of work. You can't just teach that, you know?
Exactly. And you know what else I found fascinating?
What's that?
RoleCatcher talked about how the educational background for migrant social workers is actually a lot more diverse than you might think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, of course, you see a lot of social work degrees, which makes sense.
Right.
But they were highlighting people with backgrounds in things like anthropology
Anthropology. That's interesting.
and even international relations.
Huh. I never would have thought of that. But it makes sense when you think about it.
Right. I was like, what's the connection there?
Well, I mean, to really support someone from a different culture, you need to understand their cultural context, right?
Yeah,
Their belief systems, their values, their worldview.
that's true.
And anthropology kind of gives you that framework for understanding the human experience across cultures.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So it's really about connecting with people on a deeper level,
Absolutely.
not just navigating the practicalities of getting a visa or finding a place to live.
Right. It's about more than just checking boxes.
Exactly.
And that's where the real challenge comes in, but also the biggest reward.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, where do migrant social workers actually practice? Like, what kind of settings are we talking about here?
Well, that's the thing. It's incredibly varied.
Oh, really?
You might find them in government agencies,
Okay.
nonprofit organizations, community centers,
Wow, so it's all over the place.
pretty much, even private practice sometimes.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher mentioned one example
Hmm.
of a social worker who worked for a refugee resettlement agency. And they worked directly with families to help them find housing, healthcare, employment, all of that.
So they're really on the front lines.
Exactly. But then you have others who might work more in advocacy roles,
Oh, interesting.
trying to influence policy changes within nonprofits or even government institutions.
So there's a whole spectrum of work that falls under this umbrella.
Exactly. It's a very dynamic field.
It sounds like you need to be pretty adaptable to make it in this kind of field.
Well, for sure. And speaking of key,
Yeah.
RoleCatcher actually breaks down what they see as like the essential skills for migrant social workers.
Okay, like what's in their toolkit?
Exactly. And some of them might surprise you.
Really? Like what?
Well, I mean, obviously you need the knowledge base,
Mm.
like understanding immigration procedures, social services, all that.
Right, the nuts and bolts.
Yeah. But they put equal weight on skills like active listening, critical thinking.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about knowing the rules.
Not even close.
Yeah.
They even use the term cultural competency, which is so important.
Cultural competency. What did that mean exactly?
So basically, it's the ability to interact respectfully and effectively with people from all different backgrounds.
Okay, so being able to really understand where someone is coming from.
Exactly. Even when their experiences and beliefs are totally different from your own.
It makes you think those are skills everyone could benefit from.
Oh, absolutely. Not just social workers. Being able to truly listen to someone, understand their perspective,
Yeah.
those are invaluable life skills.
Mhm.
But in the context of this work,
Right.
where you're dealing with trauma, loss, huge cultural adjustments, those skills become absolutely essential.
To build trust, to actually be able to help.
Exactly.
It's like you're stepping into someone else's shoes for a little while.
That's a great way to put it. Trying to see the world through their eyes.
Even when those shoes have walked through some really, really tough times.
And that actually brings us to something RoleCatcher doesn't shy away from, the emotional toll of this work.
Right, because it can't always be easy dealing with those kinds of situations day in and day out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They share some quotes from experienced social workers,
Oh, interesting.
and one of them mentioned how secondary trauma and burnout are very real risks.
Because you're carrying those stories with you.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff.
So how do you prevent that? How do you protect yourself from being overwhelmed by it all?
That's where self-care comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Having strong support systems and a healthy dose of perspective.
Easier said than done, though, right?
It takes conscious effort, for sure. RoleCatcher actually gives some concrete strategies for managing stress and burnout.
Like what?
Things like mindfulness practices, peer support groups.
Okay, so having that network to debrief with.
Exactly. And even just setting firm boundaries between work life and personal life.
Oh, that's so important. So you can actually switch off and recharge.
Right, because you can't pour from an empty cup, you know?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So with all the challenges, with the emotional weight of this work,
Yeah,
what motivates someone to actually choose this path?
that's a great question. And for RoleCatcher, it really comes down to that sense of purpose,
Okay.
that deep fulfillment that comes with knowing you're making a real difference.
Yeah.
Imagine being part of someone's journey to rebuild their life,
Mm-hmm.
to see their resilience, their strength.
It must be incredible to witness that kind of transformation.
It really is. And to know you played a part in that,
It really makes you think about the impact you can have on someone's life.
it really does. And you know what else RoleCatcher brings up?
What's that?
They talk about how career progression and salary are important things to consider.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially in a field like this, you know,
Exactly.
you want to know that there's room for growth, that it's not a dead end.
Absolutely. And the good news is there is.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, RoleCatcher highlighted several different career paths you could take.
Oh, wow. Like what?
For example, you could specialize in a certain area,
Okay.
like family reunification, or maybe working with unaccompanied minors.
Right. Focusing on a specific population.
Exactly. Or you could go into a management role,
Mm-hmm.
maybe at a larger organization. Some people even end up advocating for policy changes.
Wow. So you could have a hand in shaping things at a bigger level.
Yeah, you could work at the national or even international level.
That's amazing. It seems like there's a lot of possibilities once you get your foot in the door.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But to actually climb that ladder, RoleCatcher really stresses the importance of continuing education.
That makes sense because things are constantly changing.
Exactly. Immigration policies change all the time. New challenges pop up.
Yeah.
You're always learning about different cultures.
Right. It's an ongoing process.
For sure. They even gave some concrete examples.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Things like taking courses on trauma-informed care,
Mm-hmm.
or even
Yeah.
learning a new language.
Oh, wow. To communicate better with clients.
Exactly. It's about being a lifelong learner in this field, you know,
Always adapting and expanding your skill set.
for sure. And you know what else caught my eye?
What's that?
RoleCatcher talks about the growing role of technology in this line of work.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, they mention how artificial intelligence is being used more and more
Okay.
for things like real-time translation.
Oh, wow. So social workers can communicate more easily with clients who speak different languages.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is, but it also makes you wonder how else technology might change things moving forward.
Right. It's hard to predict.
Is it all positive, or are there some potential downsides to be aware of?
That's the million-dollar question. It's
Yeah.
like anything else, there are two sides to the coin.
Right. It's about finding that balance.
Exactly. Technology can definitely help to streamline things,
Mm-hmm.
connect people with resources faster, overcome language barriers, all of that.
Those are all really good things.
They are. But we also don't want to lose sight of that human connection.
That's so important, especially in this line of work.
Absolutely. So it's something to keep in mind as technology continues to advance.
You know, it's like what we've been talking about all along. It's not just about the practical side of things. It's about that human element, that empathy, that understanding.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, we're going to have to wrap things up for today. But I hope this deep dive has given everyone a lot to think about.
Me too.
It's been great exploring this with you, as always.
Likewise, always a pleasure.
And for our listeners, thank you for joining us on another deep dive. We'll catch you next time.